Welcome everyone to Hire Moment Mastermind. Merry Christmas. We are delighted to have everyone here, small as we are, but that's okay. We can answer any job search questions that come our way. So I'm Shira Litzar, happy to be joined by Vern Schillinger, and welcome Deborah and Mark. And how can we help you find folks today? What's going on? Or do you want to talk about your job search? We can go there too. We can do a little deep dive into your situation and just generally, we can maybe give you some advice.
I got a question I thought of, and I'll be honest, sometimes I come to this on Fridays because I like the routine and the structure that gets me up and engaging with people. So sometimes I'm here too.
Yeah.
But something I've been thinking on, so I'm taking a few days off for Christmas, but planning to work, over the stretch in the next few days. I've been thinking about a possible career pivot, and this comes back to, and it's exploring a little bit going out of recruiting search into learning and development. And I've been having a series of calls with practitioners. It's been I've really enjoyed it. But then it kind of comes to my question. I said, in the back of my head, maybe I just want to go ahead and get a learning and development resume sketched out. I don't know if I'm going for it, but just to have one, not put a lot of time into it. So one of the things I have on my to-do list is to go through all my past jobs and say, let me take all the activities I've done in it. It can count as L&D and for everything I've done. But I kind of started making it go, it's like, I generally do not like functional resumes, but I kind of started saying, is this one when you're making a pivot, does a functional resume make sense? So I'm just going to kind of throw it out there because
I can really address this one, Deborah, like for real, like zero in on exactly your question. So I don't know if I've shared this here, but I certainly have shared it on other, talks that I've given. I'm going to give two very specific examples of times where I've helped people do that. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. And then I'm going to share with you, actually one of the resumes that I'm going to share with you. Okay. So two stories. Story number one, many years ago, I helped an attorney become a writer. Have you ever heard me tell this story? So help an attorney become a writer, like how in the world do you do that? So of course, attorneys do a lot of writing, right? So to your point, so what I did was I took his resume, we went through and found every single, briefs and all the different things. And so created the resume, couldn't change his titles, obviously, but in the accomplishments, right? Went ahead and found all the different writing samples and labeled all of the different writing examples with whatever writing label was. And then on the LinkedIn profile, which that's the one too, remember? On LinkedIn, then we went ahead and created something that talked about why he wanted to pivot to writing, what kind of writing he likes to do, right? So what ended up happening was he got a job as a journalist with a legal trade publication. So my concept of lane and community, and if I have it, and I'll just because it's recorded, I'll share it again. So lane is your profession, community is the industry, mission, or sector. And in his case, we were able to make that pivot because we changed the lane from attorney to writer, but kept the legal community. So it made the employer feel safe. And he did that for a long time. And now he's an English teacher and was able to pivot. Okay. So that's one story. The other one, which I'm actually going to share, funny, I shared this I think yesterday with somebody. I'm going to pull up a resume for you and I'll tell you the quick story. So this is somebody who was in the association world, still is actually. And she was in the advocacy space, public policy, that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm just going to pull 1 second. 1 second. So she was in the policy space and she decided she wanted to go into operations. So again, how in the world do you do that, right? So what we did was we went through her background, of course, can't change her titles, but we found every example where she had OPSI kind of experience, technology, budget, staff, that kind of stuff. And here's what we did. So Deborah, this is the long answer to your short question, okay? Instead of doing a functional resume, we use the resume that I normally use, which is a hybrid model. And I've redacted her name. Her name is up top here. And I just redacted the organization. And so we called her an operations-minded association leader. Okay, so we can't say that she was an ops professional, but we said that she was operations-minded. So you could possibly think of some sort of creative headline that speaks about L&D. Like you can't really call yourself an L&D professional, but you can maybe think of some adjective, right, that kind of speaks to your mindset. And then here's what we did. So we kept her titles, right, policy. And then here you go. Technology modernization, staff development, budget management, process improvement, right? These kinds of things. And we found real stories from her background that spoke to it. And so the employer was able to go quickly scan down instead of a functional resume. This is the resumes that I do are all like this. They're called hybrid. So it's a hybrid chronological functional. So it's still chronological, but the function is baked into the resume by labeling the stories. Does that make sense? That's all you have to do. You keep your titles and then you just find L&D stories, label them in bold so that quickly when they scan down the page, they can see, oh, L&D, L&D, L&D. And you could even, instead of having, I call professional highlights, instead of saying professional highlights or professional experience, you can say learning and development related experience. So you're still keeping the whole resume, but the title of that section is L&D related. And then so the whole resume feels L&D. The headline at the top, if you want to do this text box and put those competencies there, like absolutely everything minus your titles will have that L&D flavor. Does that make sense? But I absolutely would not recommend you do functional for the reasons you know already. But to do the hybrid is perfectly great for everybody, not just for people who are career shifting, because it really helps people focus on the keywords.
Yeah, I like that. So it's kind of the idea of like it's almost because someone told me that she said she did a pivot and she said I took every job and I put everything under there that was related to what I was pivoting into.
That's right. That's right.
And then just spell it out, and I don't have to.
Yeah, and only focus on that. In other words, don't even mention administrative and all the other stuff you did. Only highlight the skills that were related to L&D. So again, so everything's tight and feels L&D-ish,
So, Deborah, I've been in learning and development for 40 years. So here are some other ideas and suggestions for you. In terms of a job search, in terms of an actual job, your skills and experience would fit. And if you search jobs, look for training coordinator, training specialist. Larger organizations, when they're running lots of programs, there's a lot of administrative work to supplement the programs. And so training coordinator is a pretty, maybe they change the title a little bit, but the function is still there in lots of big organizations. And that may be a way you could get in on the ground level. And that's what typically happens sometimes with training coordinators. Happens in HR too. Administrative assistants start to get into recruiting. They start scheduling interviews, then they sit in on the interview, and then the recruiting manager says, okay, why don't you ask a few questions in this next interview? And they build their skills while they're, and then they get promoted into a recruiter. And the same thing can happen in the learning and training, area, learning and development. The other place to go to learn about jobs and learn more about the industry is go to one of the local association for
ATD.
And whenever I've sent people to ATD, networking because they have some interest in training, typically they say, wow, the people were so helpful. They were so, because these are trainers, they like to help people.
They're helping.
Right?
They're people.
That's why they're in the training function. So, they would be more than happy to give you their opinion, their advice about, how to get into the training industry. Best case scenario, oh, I just heard about an open position at, ABC company for a training coordinator.
Yeah. The local chapter of ATD is pretty robust. Now, I don't know if the whole hybrid in-person thing, if they do have in-person now, I'd show up. I really would.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing like it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. That's great advice. And also to your point, Vern, that the interesting thing about L&D, actually, it is technically an HR function, right? So there is
depends on the size of the organization.
It depends on the size of the organization, but it's tangentially related, and you've sort of been tangentially related to HR because of recruiting, right? So you're still kind of a first cousin.
To
that world.
So, and Deborah, offline, if you want to have conversation about training and development, and I'm happy to do that with you and get into some more of the weeds about learning and development.
Also,
Things that you could share with people that you know a little bit about, which I know would resonate with people who are in learning and development.
also research compensation, because as you know, anytime you make a career pivot, there can be a shift.
Yeah.
And so you have to be realistic around what that might be. And so whether it's training coordinator, training specialist, anything that sort of has a training administrative flavor, which is often what those roles are, may not be what you're used to. So you've got to really research.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting when I've been doing conversations with people. I think it hit me a couple of weeks ago. I started realizing, like, oh, if I do this job for a couple of years, what's the career path look like? And that was one of the things I realized, like, I want to figure that out too. Like, okay, if you do this 5-10 years. So I started asking about that in conversations, and that's what you've been really helpful to think
Yeah,
about.
I think Vern will be really helpful, but just at a baseline, a lot of people actually go into sort of classroom training, or they go into what's called ISD, the instructional design side of things. Those are kind of two typical career paths.
Yeah. So early in my career, I was in charge of Dunkin' Donuts University. And this is where all of the franchisees had to go through 6 weeks of training.
Okay.
So I was responsible for hiring training instructors. Well, what I hired were store managers who knew the business upside down, right? Every which way. They didn't know the first thing about training. So I sent them to like a train the trainer, 1 week program, worked with them on, creating the lesson plans, worked with them on their presentation skills. And it became a very attractive job because all of those training instructors, once they got their feet, they really got pretty good at what they were doing, they got promoted to district sales manager. And one of those guys is now the CEO of Hardee's. Okay. So there's a career for you over a number of years. But that's where it's those kind of entry roles that, get you started in the field, and you take it, as long as you can, it's the way to move through that whole professional development. Oh.
That helpful, Deborah?
Very helpful.
Yeah.
All right, Mark.
It's one of my holiday. It's one of my between Christmas and New Year's projects. I spent a couple hours sketching that out because I realized I just want to have it if I am ready. So yeah, very helpful.
Well, one other thing to think about too is as you're doing your research, if this is a big if you decide to go jump into the deep end of that pool, you're going to want to commit in the sense of not just recreating your resume and doing the networking and all that stuff, but actually changing the about section of your LinkedIn profile along with your headline to show people that you're serious. I'm not saying do that right now, but if you do feel like, all right, this is it, the Lord's leading me here, let's do this, then you've got to really, LinkedIn's got to back it up, because otherwise it'll be brain confusion, right? If you keep the old stuff and have the networking, it's not, so you got to align them.
Okay.
Yeah.
For myself, not so much questions. Vern, I've been in further communication with Jamie over at ABA.
Okay.
And she seems to be of the opinion, and she's not the first person who said this. What I really need to be looking for at this point is a bank directorship, I guess, on a community bank board. And so she's been looking for people for me to talk to, and she's found one at a local bank whose name I won't mention. So I've been in contact with the CEO of the bank. Jamie suggests probably that it wouldn't be at that bank, as they currently have a very large board, which may be too large. But so it's an informational interview, but who knows, who he may know. Jamie keeps working for me, and I very much appreciate that. Let me ask you what hopefully is a silly question. the CEO was fairly prompt in the saying, well, I'm available between Christmas and New Year's, and of course that's not a good week for me. I'm going to be away, and then I've got a couple of doctor's appointments that would have to be changed. So I gave him a date of Friday. He said that looks good, but he said if there's any flexibility in his schedule, well, I indicated I was going to be away, and he said, does it work better to the following week that he's open that week too? And I said that frankly it would be better, and I suggested a bunch of dates. Well, he's gone blank on me at this point, so I don't know whether he's just gotten busy or whether I asked for the wrong thing. Any thoughts?
Sounds
I'm
like
assuming
it sounds like it's just that time of year, right? Because people have
Yeah.
gotten hurry up and wait, to finish up the year. And I would check in again at the, first week of the year.
That's what I'm going to do. So yeah, he's CEO, so I'm assuming he's probably busy.
Yeah. Well, and again, you said he responded right away.
Yeah, he did.
To
He
the
did.
initial one. So,
Yeah.
now again, you're not at the top of his priority list. And again,
No,
so
I'm
if
not.
other things come up, but
Yeah.
you gently keep reminding him on, and hopefully you'll have that meeting sometime in January.
Yeah.
So I have another connection for you, Mark. I'm just
Sure.
I'm chatting this to you privately. An individual who is in my sphere. We're indirectly connected, but he'll know who I am pretty quickly, probably, if I just say it. And very, very nice guy, community oriented person. Not A, he runs a community bank, and B, he is a real giver in the community. He actually runs a networking, actually a Christian breakfast a leadership breakfast that he runs every month, actually. I mean, total community focused person. And I think he would be, I'm sure he'd be open to chatting with you. So
Sure.
if look him up on LinkedIn, as I just chatted you,
Yeah,
if you
sure.
want an introduction, let me know.
Sure.
You have my email address, right?
Yes.
Okay, just let me know.
Okay. Would like to give it to you right now, or?
No, just offline if you want me to, if you do want me
Okay,
to.
yeah,
connect,
okay,
and
I don't know, I'd
and
like
then-
it. I'd like
Yeah,
it.
and then write me a little paragraph, like what kind of intro you want, like what you're actually looking for. You
Okay.
mentioned bank directorship, like give me a little language that I can use to forward an
Okay.
intro.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
Sure. All
Merry
right.
Christmas, Alki.
Hey, Alki. How are you feeling? Alki's been under the weather.
I know.
Morning. I think I'm doing okay. I shot up to 75-80%. I was feeling pretty good about myself.
Mhm.
And then it went back left a little bit. So, but yeah, I'm hanging in there. Definitely better than the week prior. But yeah, it's been a 2-week thing hanging around. So I felt good enough to get on the camera. I was looking at the coach was looking at me, and then he decided to put me in the game here for this call this morning at the last minute. So
Okay.
Glad you're here.
Um,
Pray you feel better.
thank you.
All right. So any other topics, thoughts, Vern or Alki, even things that you want to bring up for the good of the order? Any topics?
I'll reiterate that it's been I don't know, I think it's been about 3 months for me, maybe, meeting you guys. I knew you already, sure, but yeah, this has been a good I've been in a bunker a bit over the last couple of years, and definitely this year, and this is probably the first active group or active thing that I've come back out for, and it's been a nice cup of joe in my world, but also the dialogue and listen to everybody's journeys and stories. And I've seen a few people who were part of this group for a while and being on long enough to hear their stories. So I just commend you all for what you do in this group, both sides, people who are on the call, and then the two of you as well. I've gotten a lot out of the call, and I've seen a lot. So it's been a nice shot in the arm.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, prayerfully, you'll be able to continue to, keep blessing people, right? Because you do that, Alfie. I know you're on LinkedIn and giving tips and advice and, anything that we share here, obviously, hope it's helpful to your community too.
Very much.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Any questions around trends that are going on, things that you're, Deborah and Mark, that you're seeing in your own job search, things that are puzzling you about the employment process, things that we can, elucidate about any experiences you've had with recruiters, with employers, with, getting screened, anything that's making you go, well, I wonder what's going on here.
I'll fill in. I
Yeah.
saw that a topic that was interesting. I was doing a screen, I'll say it probably this week, with an agency staff, so it's just third party recruiter, and I was asked, "Oh, what did you make in your last job?" I was a little surprised by that question. I thought in some places that was an illegal hiring question, but I wasn't sure. So it's one of these things, and I explained this to my friends. I said, when I got asked that question, I'm kind of evaluating, how it's like an interviews both ways, but curious on that. Is that a
Yeah, so
hiring question
here's
that I
what's
should
here's
not
what's
be
going on.
asked?
Here's what's going on. It depends. There is no hard and fast yet. We're still in
Okay.
flux with this whole idea of what's called pay equity or pay
Equity,
transparency laws. Every state in the union is different. We don't have any federal laws around this yet. It's just state by state. And it kind of, so there's that. It's like Colorado. You don't ask that question, right? There's Colorado super strict about that stuff. Number one. Number two, there are a lot of recruiters who just aren't even aware of what's going on and are just innocently asking the question because they just are doing what they've always been doing and don't know any differently. And so some of it's just ignorance.
Yeah.
Right. So I would just be thoughtful about that, because it just literally may be that they don't know and they're doing the same old. Okay. So I just, here's what I would do though. If you were asked that question, which we know why that question is not a good one to be asked. You can say, so it's, by the way, did they say, what were you last making or what are you looking for? I forgot what you said.
What did I make in my last job?
Right. So that one, okay. So that I would avoid that answer. I would pivot it very quickly. And even this is sometimes people don't ask anymore because, some states say post the salary. Okay. But if they're not posting the salary, what you can say is, well, let me just share with you what I'm looking for and see if that aligns with your budget. I would stay away from that question around what you were actually making, because that's the thing that keeps people low. I would just say, well, what I'd rather share with you is what I'm looking for. And remember, Deborah, do not share the range. Share your top number, because they can always walk you down, but they're not going to walk you up. So if you say X to Y, they're going to give you X. Okay. You want to start with Y and then say, what I'm ideally looking for is, something around the Y number. Does that align with your budget? And then they can say, oh, yes or no, right? And then you can talk about benefits and blah, blah, blah. But I would totally pivot that.
She did say you said it was an agency who asked, right?
Yeah.
Or align with the client's budget, right? Is that what the client is, is looking for?
Yeah.
And Elke, I'm just curious, in the agency world, there's good agencies, there's not so good agencies. I mean, isn't that the easiest way to screen out people, right? If they give you that answer and they say, well, we're going to go up to 50,000. And if somebody says their, last job was 60 or 70, forget it. We can write them off the list now.
If it's not for a specific job, that's why agencies are working with external recruiters is a little different. As Shira said, probably the wording on the question is not the best, but if it's me as an external recruiter or from part of an agency and we're just doing a general, hey, let me size you up so you can see what type of opportunities you would best match. And there's not a clear, a role that we're talking about right now, one specific role, then it's really more of a conversation. We got to get, ballpark, like Shira said, we got to know your number, like what's your number, where you're looking to be, and then we can look at opportunities around that. If it's one specific opportunity, again, the wording of the question is wrong, but yeah, that's if it's for an opportunity, yeah, that number can make or break. It depends how hard they are on it, but yeah, if it's for one opportunity and it's an agency, and you give your number, as Shira said, and that'll, they'll have dialogue about that. If it's one
Right.
particular opportunity, they'll have dialogue, yay or nay, maybe, let me go back and check. But if it's just a general agency recruiter trying to size opportunities up, then they usually can work. That's a longer conversation that they'll work.
And something to get, thank you, Alki, that's a great finer point. It all depends on what kind of agency this is. So you know how, and Deborah, I know you come from that world, so this is a little, you come from the executive search side, but agency, and then maybe this is worth actually having a conversation. We haven't done the whole recruiter talk for a while. So like, if that's okay, let's just sort of go here so people explain to folks what it is. So, there are different kinds of recruiters, right? So you've got your corporate recruiters who work internal at a company. They're paid a regular salary. They've got 30 open recs, as they say, 30 open jobs on their desk, right? That's all they do all day long. And they only work for that company, okay? But the third parties, that of course takes different shapes and sizes, okay? So you've got folks who are what's called contingent recruiters, which means that the employer does not pay them until they have successfully completed the search, in which case that agency is competing with all the other agencies that employer is working with. So they're competing, and it's sort of this frenetic race to the finish line to see who can actually make the placement first. It's challenging for the candidates because you don't know that that's going on. All you know is that contingent recruiting agency is not really giving you, shall we say, extra tender loving care, okay? They might treat you very transactionally because they're like on to the next thing because they're racing to see who can get the placement. And then there's a retained search, and of course, Deborah, you come from that world, which is typically on the executive side where the employer is paying it's an exclusive search and the employer is paying the agency, usually a third to complete the search. It's a very intimate relationship. The candidate will typically have a high touch experience, will get usually more information about the search, get prepped, all of this. But either which way, whether it's a contingent firm or a retained firm, these firms typically have practice areas. And the practice area could be an industry or it could be a career vertical. So if it's a career vertical, let's say they specialize in accounting and finance people or HR people or attorneys or something like that. In that case, to everyone, to Alki's point, they might actually take the time to do a generic screen. If they only place, let's pretend, Deborah, that you were in accounting and finance, okay? If you were in accounting and finance, whether you are an accountant or a CFO or anybody in between, and if that agency has a practice area for accounting and finance, that means they're constantly getting positions up and down the food chain, which means they would want to have a good cadre of quality accounting and finance professionals up and down the food chain ready to go, right? If they get something. An industry vertical is different. So if I happen to be one of those people, I mostly place people in the association industry. I mean, I do a little bit of extra, but mostly in the associations, which means my positions are all over the place, up, down, and across. So it's not just for me, CEO to executive assistant. It's also the membership and government relations and education and communications and all these things, which means I'm not in a position to just generically screen people because I place so many different kinds of people in so many different ways. I never know what's going to come. Okay. And so I just can't take the time to do that. I'd be spending all day long. Right. But if it is an agency that is doing a career vertical and you are in that vertical and you know that they regularly place, in your case, I know you're making a career pivot, but let's just take your executive assistant search firm thing. If that is what they do and they place search firm people at EAs, it's worth it for you to have that conversation and just let them know, hey, here's my target, here's my ideal. If you have opportunities in that range, please consider me. If it's a generic screen, but to Alki's point, if it's a specific screen, you could still say it. But of course, they're going to be screening you specifically for that job. So they're listening for that number and saying, is she a fit for that job? And if she's not, we'll keep her in mind. But then you're no longer a fit for that role, as opposed to them thinking of you generic. So I hope that's helpful. Make sense? So Mahesh, you are new to us. Want to open your mic and share with us a little bit about who you are and how you found us? You're on mute. Can you hear us? Oh, there you are.
Should I asking me because
Yeah.
I
We just-
saw some there are some I mean accidentally stuck up without any voice. I was wondering.
I'm sorry.
It stopped all of a sudden.
Oh, okay. Well, we can hear you now. How did you hear about our group?
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. Sorry for my apologies for late joining. I was about to pick my friend from airport. So I'm very new to this group. And in fact, I'm new to this country. I'm in the process of searching various possible opportunities, and that lead me to connect various platforms like this. So, well, my name is Mahesh Shitagari. To just give an intro, I'm from India. I relocated. I moved in here a year back, and it took 1.5 years to process the legal presence. And a month ago, I got all the eligible work permit as well as the legal presence of
Great.
the like resident status, etc. And now I'm completely eligible to work. Well, my education is that I did masters in science, that is in polymer science and technology, and I did masters in business administration and technology management. These two major uh, studies, and apart from that, I did a lot of certifications and diplomas. And when it comes to the experience, I had an experience of 19 years, and I was into first 5 years into manufacturing industry, into various capacities, production, quality control, and process development and product development. And after that, I moved to the service industry, that is into intellectual property analytics. I was there for 9 years, and I was serving to the US client only, Ohio-based, for various requests for related to the legal and business as well as.
So what are you, where do you live right now, Mahesh? What region? Oh, freezing up.
Frozen.
Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yeah, you were freezing a little bit.
That's the reason. There is some problem, I think.
Wi-Fi probably.
It could be. Well, my interest in joining over here is there any advice or inputs that I can take to move forward to get the various possible opportunities in this DMV area from your experience and senior people in different sector?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite, I think you're still freezing a little bit. Are you asking about your resume? What, I couldn't quite catch the question.
Not resume. It is some ways of inputs I'm looking for. This is my profile, and if at all you have any advice or inputs to get connect with various forums and how to get into the various ways and means to get the opportunities, that is what I'm looking for.
What kind of job are you looking for?
I'm looking for the technology transfer and commercialization.
I apologize, technology transfer and
commercialization. The
commercialization. I see.
Commercialization.
Optimization. Okay.
Are you looking at a particular sector or an industry?
Looking into it because my background is in physical sciences, I would be happy if I get in physical science area of technology transfer in federal government or universities or any corporate. I'm open.
That happens not to be my area. I don't know, Alki, I know you've had a very broad background. Does that what he's talking about resonate at all with what you've done?
I have done that part. Yeah, it was a tough time for me to suit the industry needs for resume. I did bit quite exercise, and I'm good at in resume. If at all, if you permit me, I will share the resume. You can advise me. Is there any modifications that needs to be done?
Yeah, I wouldn't be the best, even though I do resumes. I don't know if I'd be the best person because that you're very much outside of my sphere. But here's one tip I will give you, and that has to do with LinkedIn. When you are doing your networking, it's very, very helpful on LinkedIn. And I'm not talking about the job board. I'm talking about the search bar in the upper left-hand corner. To type in that search bar, the title or the like you mentioned, technology. Did you say, I apologize, did you say technology transfer?
Commercialization.
Commercialization, to put those keywords into LinkedIn and go and find your colleagues, people who do what you do, because those are the people who often hear about opportunities that are not right for them, but could be right for you. Some of the best networking that you could ever do are the people who actually do what you do, because recruiters, when we're looking for you, we're reaching out to all the people who do what you do. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this phrase, birds of a feather flock together. We assume that there's a community of people that are all hanging out together and talking to each other. And so if you are known among the community of people who do your kind of work, then they might be able to refer you to opportunities that recruiters are reaching out to them for. So that's one of the best tips that I can give you, along with the next level up. So the people network with the people who do what you do, try to put in the titles of the people who are the hiring manager level, and then try to network with those two people. So those are the two levels that I would recommend in terms of LinkedIn network.
And Manish, did you say, where do you live?
I live in Hendon.
Did you say Atlanta?
I'm living. I'm staying at Hendon City.
Which city?
Herndon. Herndon.
Oh, Herndon?
Herndon.
Herndon, okay.
Oh, so you're in the DC metro area?
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Got it. All right.
Okay, well, there's certainly lots of opportunities in the technology area, in this area, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of tech firms right
Yeah.
here locally. There is an organization you may want to connect with. It's called NVTC. I'm going to go, hold on a second. I'm going to go pull them up here. I'm going to put them in the chat for you.
Okay.
This is an organization, it's very local. Give me one moment. And it's called the Northern Virginia Technology Council. It's a local membership association, and their members are in the technology space, all kinds of tech firms at all kinds of levels. And you might find a home there if you go to their networking meetings.
I would look up their website, and I mean, they do have, at least they used to, when I was in DC, they used to have regular,
Regular
face-to-face
meetings.
meetings.
Mhm.
They may have
Yeah.
reinstituted them, or it might be virtual, but you certainly should connect with people in that
That's right.
organization. Yeah.
Also on Meetup, there are a lot of tech meetups. So if you just go to meetup.com, I know we're on Meetup as well, and just, type in whatever it is, whether it's the technology commercialization or anything that's related, and see if there's an existing group of people who are specifically in your space. Because that's again where your best networking is going to be. They're going to hear about opportunities that maybe we wouldn't. You're always welcome here, but as far as additional networking, I would also try them.
Yeah, sure, certainly. And thanks for this. And I didn't know that. I just noted down the NVTC. I'll follow up that. And yeah, I'm looking for this kind of network because since I'm at the in a kind of situation wherever the opportunity comes, that I keep connecting and getting to know that inputs and following up and sending through LinkedIn. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm following up with LinkedIn. I did all the exercise, but perhaps that
Oh boy. Well,
thing that I got it from you. And the second one, more often what I did observe, that is my experience. I keep sending through LinkedIn, but I didn't get any response. I only get the response for some reason. They could not. I mean, they have gone for a different candidate or such, etc., etc. So one of my friends suggested it's a better way to pitch yourself is get connect with the network like this. So that's the reason, that's the that motivates me to join here. And later on I'll connect to the specific areas, meetups or networks.
right.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And groups like ours are very generic, right? So we have different people from different industries, different professions. So we give a lot of generic advice on job search. And in addition, as I mentioned, make sure that you also find the meetups that are very much in the technology space. They're going to give you much more specific advice. We'll give you general advice on resumes and interviewing and things like that, but we're not going to be as helpful, I don't think, in terms of your specific niche. So make sure that you find those meetup groups as well. Because it is very much about networking. You're right. Because a lot of times if you apply to a job online, you're one of 100 applicants, 200 applicants, and oftentimes you're not going to get noticed. But when you have a relationship with somebody, then you show up before your resume, your reputation shows up, and then the employer is much more likely to give you consideration.
And Manish,
Yeah.
another thing that happens on LinkedIn is a lot of people don't look at their LinkedIn for
Right.
weeks.
That's right.
So you could find somebody and say, wow, this is the ideal person. And you email them and you don't get a response because they haven't gone.
They're not checking their LinkedIn.
They haven't checked into
Mhm.
LinkedIn for a month.
Mhm.
So, that, and there's no way that that when
Right.
you're, when you're sending the invite or the invitation to someone. So that's just part of the way LinkedIn operates and works. And it's not so much LinkedIn, it's the individuals. Oh yeah, it should be LinkedIn. So everybody joins, but they're not active on it. And if you're not active on it,
Right.
you
So one of the things you can do to kind of push that a little bit is if the person you're trying to connect to is your second level contact, that means that you have a mutual first level connection. So what you
Okay.
can do is if you haven't heard back from that person from the second level, I'll call that person John. Okay. John is the person you're trying to connect with. They're your second level. Mary is your first level mutual connection. Send the note to John. In addition, follow up with Mary, person you know, maybe through email, right? And say, hi, Mary, right? I noticed that you're connected to John. I'm trying to reach him. Would you consider brokering an introduction? So then Mary might be able to get involved and get the word to John that you're trying to reach out. So that's a double way of trying to find John.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing that part also. So what I would like to share, and I'm seeking advice from you, apart from the networking through LinkedIn, and I use the LinkedIn jobs portal, and through jobs portal, I pick the relevant opportunities, then I keep applying specific to that job description. I changed, tailor-mading my resume as well as cover letter. So, however, I didn't see that much of a response. I too heard that you won't get just keep sending. It will be on the organization dashboard, and nobody looks at it until unless you get network with that. So in that case, what is the reason then the people like me or the open source like LinkedIn job portal and they are inviting to us to apply, and how does it make sense? So my question is, if they don't look at their
Right. What's the
dashboard,
point?
who has applied? What's the point? HR department in their organization.
Right. So
That's
that's a great question. That's the $1 million question. That said, it's not that every recruiter uses the LinkedIn job board differently. Okay. It all depends on the recruiter, how many jobs they have open, how much time they can sit to scroll through one by one by one by one. So it's not that nobody's looking at your resume, but what might be happening, and there's a lot of variables here.
Mhm.
Number one, okay, depending upon how many applicants they get. They might get 500 applicants, okay? They may or may not have time to go through all, but they go through quick. And what you don't know, Mahesh, is that the way it shows up, because I've used it myself as a recruiter, the way it shows up for us is it shows up as a laundry list of candidates, like little boxes down the side of a page. And then we have to physically go, okay, tap on Mahesh. And then on this side, it'll show quickly your name and then a quick summary of your resume or of your experience. Title, the company title. And then we have to then proactively click on another button to get your resume to show up. So it's like a three-step process, three-step process. That takes time to do that. Now, some of us might have more time to do it. Some of us might have more interest in doing that because it depends on how our candidate pool is looking. So it's not that no one's ever looking. It just might be that your personal experience is that you haven't heard back, which is normal. But there are people who actually get jobs through a LinkedIn job board, right? If they didn't, then nobody would use the tool. So it does happen. One of the other factors here, and it's something that's important for you to know, and that's a 2023 comment, okay? Post-COVID comment. If you are applying for a fully remote job, your competition is like 10x at least, because the whole country is applying or has the opportunity to apply. It used to be, we were very regional. I know you're new to the country, but we used to be like here in DC. It used to be that more companies would hire locally. Why? Because they wanted you to be in the office. Now, especially tech companies, right, have opened up and said, hey, keep working remote. And the employer's like, great, we can look for anybody around the country. Well, that means you've got a lot of competition. And so that job on LinkedIn now, right? And there's like a million people. And the other thing too, is it depends on when you apply. If you happen to catch the search, here's a tip, and I haven't shared this tip actually before. If you see a job on LinkedIn, try to apply within the first 24 hours.
Oh,
Apply with it. Don't wait. Don't wait. By the time a week goes by, if it's a remote job, they've already been they've already had a million people apply. But that first 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, catch it very fast, because it's likely that that recruiter is then looking at the people who hit the top of the list. And by the time a week goes, actually, the job could be gone in a week. I've had it happen myself, where I had way too many candidates within 48 hours. I had to close the search. I had too many candidates. I could not physically screen all those people.
Yep.
Try to hit it really, really early, especially if it's remote. Now, if it's not, here's the opposite. If it's not remote, if it's a hybrid job or full-time in the office, which is rare these days, but if it's hybrid, now your competition is very, really small, because there are fewer people who actually want to work hybrid. So I'm not saying wait on applying, but I'm saying that your competition is less, so you're more likely to hear back from the employer, because they're having a hard time finding people who are willing to work hybrid.
Potentially less too. And so when she says less, you're probably going from 5,000, or let me just make it more realistic. You could be going from 430, but still 130.
Right.
And
It could.
she said 48 hours. She said a week. Sometimes, just a little bit more insight to build on what she said. I've had, so we talk about LinkedIn a lot as our main source. I've been a recruiter where LinkedIn is like an afterthought. I've posted a job in 12 places, not to mention the other 35 other job boards that are like an automatic post thing that the employer has. Then we have the employer website. Then I may also have an internal portal for internal candidates. So LinkedIn, you talked about how some people don't check it in a month. As a recruiter, LinkedIn might not even be my first source. First source could be the job board. It's definitely going to be my internal candidates I'm going to look at first. If I go through all of those, it may be like 2-3 weeks after the job's posted, and then I'm like, I forgot I forgot we posted the job on LinkedIn. Sometimes that's the case, is that it's a recruiter who's not looking at LinkedIn, forget using it and being active. They're not even looking. It's just an additional LinkedIn recruiter seat that the company has, you see a recruiter's name attached to it or not, they're not even looking at that job.
Mm.
So to her point too about who's active, one other thing you can do is, and I would suggest if you see a job on LinkedIn, to be honest, I mean, you can apply for it, but I would
Don't-
try to find a way to contact the recruiter first to even
Yeah.
find out, where's this job? How many applicants you got? That gives you, some dialogue with the recruiter first so that when you do
Right.
apply, or if you decide to apply, they're now looking at you, they've earmarked you, you now have a connection, they can follow your resume, you can tell them, okay, I'm going to apply, now, and they'll be looking for it. Otherwise, yeah, you're just dropping your name in a bowl at the counter at a bar, and you're one of 60 business cards
Right.
that they may or may not look at. So if you want to know how active somebody is too, another thing you can do before you even reach out is just check and see if they've done any posts. If they've done a post in the last week or yesterday, if they're pretty active, those are the types of people that you guys want to connect with as well, as far as spending your time on LinkedIn and seeing who's active.
Yeah. And Manish, the other thing you need to understand about certainly the job market in the United States is 80% of the jobs are never posted anywhere on the
Right.
internet.
Right.
They're not
They're
posted.
hidden. They're hidden.
They're hidden. It's called a
People are
hidden
using their
job
hidden
market.
network. They're using their personal network to
The only
find.
way that you find out about those jobs is by going to the Northern Virginia, Council of Technology, meeting people.
right.
They get to know you and they
Right.
get to learn about your skills, and they say, hey, we've got an opening coming up. And again, so it never gets posted. They just talk to people in the technology world, and they try to find people that they know fit these skills. And then they bring them in for an interview. The person gets hired. The job's never, ever, ever posted.
Right.
And the majority of the jobs.
Mhm. That's why networking is so important, especially face to face. If you can find anybody who'll meet you in person or a networking group.
Yeah.
So much because I'm fortunate. That's the reason why, though it is your platform is so generic, at least I could get some of the inputs like this so that I can narrow my approach and move on, and I can reduce my time. So going forward, so I'm really glad that I'm a part of this group. I'm just after doing all these online platform trials, and now my interest is to get connect with, like as when mentioned, that networking is more important. So that is what I'm looking for. Where can I get the good network? As you mentioned, Northern Virginia, but I'm open here. So yeah, as you mentioned earlier, I was sticking to the remote. Now I understand I need to be open. I'm prepared to go in person,
Yeah.
and I'm ready to relocate also.
Yeah.
I'm completely open because that is the desperate I'm having. So I need to be after the job. So the only way, better way is the network like this, as I mentioned. I'll follow up, and I didn't start. This is the first virtual network, and going forward I'll make sure that, but many networks like in my area, they are paid kind of events or some
Paid
kind of
memberships.
huge amount in Virginia, in DC area,
Yeah.
a lot of events are going on, but $300, $400, $500. At this point in time, I could not able to
Yeah.
No,
afford.
and you
I'm
shouldn't have to
looking
pay.
for-
You
Yeah,
shouldn't have to pay that
yeah.
kind of money, but for NVTC and things like that, it's not going to be that expensive. It'll
That
be
is
something.
what I'm looking.
Yeah, you may have to invest something to go to those
Something
chapter
is fine.
meetings,
Something is fine.
but not like $50. I don't know, but not, yeah.
That
The
is
free
fine.
stuff, the
Up to
free stuff like
$50.
this, the free stuff like this, you're going to find on Meetup.
Yeah, so I'm seriously exploring. The very reason the 2024 is a fresh new year, and I got everything is eligibility. I'm open to work anywhere, going to
Yeah.
in person, filter all, keeping out and filtering out all my restrictions. Now I'm looking for the fresh
Well,
move, fresh.
I have one more piece of advice, and I don't think we've actually really talked about this, and this is for everybody on the call. And that is to tap your former colleagues. Now, in your case, it would be specifically in India, but in your case, Mahesh, those people in India who have connections over here. Because
Mhm.
networking is really about relationships, right? It's a kind of like a friend of my friend is my friend. So if you have people who are colleagues and former employers who happen to have connections with technology companies Here, they may be able to broker an introduction. I'm not sure if you've actually taken that step, then that's of course for everybody on this call, right? Tapping former colleagues who are like, oh yeah, I know of a company, and right, they're happy to make introductions for you or give you advice because they already know your work. They trust you, you know, and they might be open to thinking proactively about companies that might be a good fit for you. So I would leverage those relationships.
Yeah, definitely, I'll do that. And one more thing, there are certain consultancies. I mean, recruiter consultancies. I'm not an IT background guy. I'm completely non-IT. I'm completely into science and technology area. But for this specific area, I can only touch upon the US consultancy, so who works, certain consultancy works for universities, certain consultancy works for federal government, like that. So to find out those consultancies also, it's a big challenge for me. One or two consultancies I did find in previous 4 to 5 months back, but that point in time, I'm not having the complete residential status, because to get an entry in federal government, you need to have the status. That is the prerequisite. So I need to revamp again my dialogues with them. So if you have any consultancies who works, of course, may not be the specific, but certain peripheral areas, I would be happy to take and move on to work with them.
Again, that
talking
you're
about-
probably, you're gonna find those through networking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Thank you very much for all your inputs.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad to be part of this and having all these nice inputs.
You're welcome. We're happy to help. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up today? Okay. All right. So Mahesh, the way that I work this is we're going to end the formal part of this call. And then I actually stay on for a short prayer call if you'd like to join us for that. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing everybody next week. We'll be here the same time for the right before New Year's as well. And so I wish everybody a blessed day, and we'll see you soon. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you.